Hey everyone, welcome to Wildlife Inspired. I'm your host, Scott Keys, and this is your channel for photography, for wildlife, and for wildlife photography. And today I've got some smaller fluid heads, and I want to look at some of the uses for these, as well as their functionality and how much can they really support. I'll give you all of that information right after this. Now lately I've been getting more requests to do fluid head videos, and I think part of that is because most of my community follows wildlife, and for some of them they are more interested in capturing video, but they're also seeing some of the cross uses. The fact that you don't have to get locked into a fluid head as its traditional use for video. You can also use it for things like birds in flight, or even just replace a gimbal with it. And in that process, some people have asked around smaller fluid heads. Do they work? Are they worth the money? How much will they support? So I'm going to get into all of that with you today. Now, my everyday fluid head for the last couple of years has been the Leofoto BV20. I've got a review on that. It's a little bit older, and I may reference that in this video. I found that with that particular fluid head, for the right price point, I got a lot of options, and it supported a lot of weight, which is what I needed. I was kind of curious about these smaller fluid heads. So I'm going to put their lineup over on the side here, and we're going to go from the smallest fluid head that they have, and we're going to go up to the BV20. And then we're also going to talk quickly about another fluid head that's on the market, and I'm going to do a full review on that as well. That's a little bit higher end fluid head that I really, really like. I'm testing that one as we speak. Now, these I'm going to give you prices, and I'm going to give you weight. The BV5 and the BV10, these are the ones we're going to talk about today. The one that I've got set up right here is the BV5, and I've got a small macro lens, and I've got my Z6 III body on here. I'm going to talk about this in terms of weight. I round these up. It's around 3 pounds. And this is one of the uses that I really like these smaller heads for. So this particular head is only a pound, a little over. It's around $200. Now I have to put an asterisk because everything you're going to see in today's video is from Leofoto, and I've got a great affiliation with them. Fantastic partner. They've been wonderful to work with, and I have a 20% discount with them. So if you use the link in the video for any of these and you apply that discount, you're going to get 20% off these prices. So anytime you see my Leofoto pricing, you're going to see retail, and then you're going to see the wildlife inspired price. So this one you're getting for a little over $150 with my discount. There is some really good uses for this, and I have found it to be very, very smooth overall. I'm going to compare these two for this video, and I'm going to mention the third one, and there's another one that's on that screen called the BV15. It's in a similar price point. It's a heavier duty model. It is not necessarily your travel fluid head because the weight jumps up pretty quickly when you get to that. The two we're going to talk about today are actually surprisingly similar. So we're going to put 3 lenses on each of these, and I'm just going to show you what I would use it for. It doesn't have to be a long video in terms of showing this to you. You'll get the point pretty quickly. Some features of a standard fluid head. So some of the things you look for. One is something called drag control. So can I adjust how this pulls and pushes and tilts and pans? How much resistance does it give me, and how smooth is that? So one of the premises of fluid heads is to get this smooth action, again, often for video where it's very, very important. We don't want anything shaky for video. So with the fluid heads you're going to see today, I found the action to be pretty smooth. There's a lockout feature on both, and they're designed almost exactly the same. I'll pull each of these up and show them to you. They comes with this arm that you see here, and then you've got your locking plate here. They have a couple different styles of locking plate. I chose one with a twist lock here, and then one has a clamp, and I'll show you a closer up when we get to that. So the BV5 is rated to hold just under 10 pounds. So I'm going to put 3 setups on this, and I'm going to show it to you. The first setup is a macro setup. Now this personally, when I'm doing videos in the yards, I'm doing insects, and I do like to take some of these videos. These are the setups I use. I will generally use this BV10. It's about $50 more. It holds a little bit more weight, but in terms of what it supports, it's actually very, very similar. So again, macro is one use. I'm going to flip these as I'm talking, and I'm going to put another setup on here that's a little bit heavier. And again, I mentioned that this was rated for about 10 pounds. So the next setup I'm going to put on here is about 5.5, 6 pounds, and this is an Olympus setup. I've been testing this lens in Olympus combination. And when I put these on, I'm always going to try to get this balanced in the middle of the of the center of gravity. So normally what I'll do is hold it flat. I'll take off all resistance and I'll tilt it a little bit each way and see what it does. And if it's not flopping, I'm in pretty good shape. Now, you can see this is supporting itself. I don't have any problems. And it doesn't feel like this is too, or the lens is too big for this setup. This is, again, 5 or 6 pounds. Action's very smooth. It's got only a lockout though. So this one does not have what they would call a drag control. And it also doesn't have what we call a counterbalance. I'll show those to you, and I've explored them in other videos, but a counterbalance is the mechanism that or I should say an adjustable counterbalance, is the mechanism that wants to straighten the lens back up. So when the lens goes down, counterbalance is going to pull it back into place. On some fluid heads, you can get the counterbalance set just right. And if you tilt it down, it'll actually just stay there. And if you tilt it up, it will stay there. With these two that we're going to talk about today, at this lower price point, you're not going to find those features. I'm just going to tell you that right now. But is it good enough, and what do I have to worry about? So if I tilt this up, watch what it's going to do. See how it's going to start to slowly creep. And that's just the center of gravity moving behind the fulcrum, and it's going to pull it down because there's not enough resistance to put it back in place. Same thing if I move it forward and I let go. I might have to give it a little nudge here. Oh, this one's being pretty good. Sometimes it will creep down. When I put my heavier setup on there, you'll see that. Now, am I worried about that? So here's where you worry about this with fluid heads. If there's not enough counterbalance built into the system, and you put a lens that's too heavy on here, and you drop it, it will flop. And it can actually flop fairly fast. And that can be dangerous because it could actually jolt the tripod, the whole thing could fall over. It's not a great situation to be in. At 6 pounds with this very light setup, again, the model only weighs a pound, I feel okay here. And the action is pretty good. Now, when we start and stop these fluid heads, there's a little bit of tension that you'll feel. The high-end fluid heads will really resist that little bump or that little jerk when you change directions. With these lower price ones, you may feel that a little bit, but I don't think you're going to notice it in the video quality that you're taking. And for still pictures, it certainly does not matter. Would I take this in the field as a wildlife photographer? With this light setup, I would be comfortable with either of these two models up to about 5 or 6 pounds. When I started getting above 8 to 10 pounds, I start to worry. Can you see it starting to creep? And that's what it does. It's not going to flop. It will slowly creep. I'm actually glad it did this because I was trying to get it to do it before. Sometimes if I'm out in the field, I can just lock this out and I don't have to worry about it. And then when I get action, I can just hit that button and I'm back in the game. So that's a 6 pound setup. I'm going to take this one off. And after I'm done with the BV5, I'm just real quickly going to go through the BV10 because they're very, very similar. And now I'm going to get my heavy lens. Now this setup is closer to 11 pounds. I think it's about 11 and a half. This is a big boy. So I'm going to put this on here. Now I got to be careful, all right, because now I'm exceeding the load for this particular unit. The load on this is only 8 pounds. On the BV10, the load is right around the capacity of this lens. So it's right around 11, 12 pounds. Now watch what happens. Because this is so heavy, you see that drastic drop? So this setup is too heavy. I would not go above that, again, 6 or 7 pound threshold. If I was using this with a light setup, a 70 to 200 millimeter lens would work for this. A 300 millimeter f4 lens would work for this. Any type of macro lens is going to work for this. Any type of landscape is going to work for this. You just want to avoid the really heavy setups with this lightest unit here. So would I use it? Sure. And I actually do use it when I make videos out in the yard or I'm doing macro photography in the yard. But with the heavier setups, I'm going to avoid this. So the question then becomes, as I put this one aside, I got to be careful not to knock these around. I'm sorry if I make a little noise when I do this. The question becomes, at what level am I comfortable with this heavy stuff? So we'll get to that in just a second. So here's the BV10, very similar in terms of design. I will tell you the panning feels a little bit better on this one, just a little bit, and the tilt is on both of them is actually very good. These aren't going to be the kind of fluid heads that you buy and you use 300 days a year, and you're traveling in the Arctic Circle, and you're going into the desert or South Florida, and it's 150 degrees. These just aren't that kind of setup, but they absolutely work, and it is 100% improvement. I'll tell you right now, if you took this $200 BV10 and did video with it and compared it to a $1,000 gimbal or a $800 ball head, the video quality is going to be way better. Like, that's just the nature of the beast. It's always going to be better when you use a fluid head, even if you use one that is a little bit less expensive. I want to adjust these legs real quick. All right, so this is my macro setup. I'm out in the yard. I'm just taking videos of my little insects and critters, and I have no problems. I'm going to pop this off. Again, this one I think is about a 3.5 pound setup. I'm going to grab the I call this like the mid-range setup. This one, by the way, and I'll show it to you over here, this has the clamp. So instead of having to thread it, I can just push this clamp. I want to be careful. Push that clamp forward. And then I mentioned I want to try to get it centered. So you can see it's a little heavy on the front. And I'm just going to keep adjusting it till it feels, give it a little tilt each way. And if it doesn't move, I'm in good shape. There's the lockout, but again, I don't have, and there's counterbalance built into the system. The counterbalance is very similar on both units. So I expected this one to be a little bit more, or a little stronger, I should say, but it was very similar. The base down here is a little bit bigger. It's a few ounces heavier, so it's 1.5 pounds. It's $50 more. So I like this one just because it's a little bit bigger. And I'll be honest, I love Leofoto. I think they did themselves, I think this one should have been a little bit more in the counterbalance. So I think it should have been a little stronger, I guess I'm trying to say. When I show you this list again, I just want you to look at how it drops and changes in both price and weight. So the BV5 is just over 1 pound. This one's not much more, it's $50 more. It replicates a lot of the same functions. It's doing a lot of the same things. I happen to like it because it's a little bit bigger. So my 6 pound setup, yep, no problem. Let's do that little test where I kind of tilt it and let it go. And you can see there it's going at about the same rate as that BV5 did. Same thing. I'm not worried that it's going to just topple over. Now let me put my heavy setup on this one. By the way, this also has a lockout, so I don't know if you saw me, but as I touch this button back here, it's a safety feature, so that lens can't slip out. I'm going to get my heavy setup. And there are heavier setups in this in wildlife. I can remember in the old days, we used to, lug around 14-pound lenses, but the newer lenses are at least a little lighter. Okay, now this one, once I get it set, I got to be real careful here, guys. So I'm just going to put it on there, and it said the weight capacity. You see what I'm saying? The weight capacity, I can lock it out. So if I'm out in the field, I can lock this out, and I don't have to worry about it. But if I forget, or I think it's locked out and it's not, and it looks like it's stable, and I walk away, and it starts to go, I'm in trouble because that system is in jeopardy. This happens again right around that 7 pound mark. This does not happen with those lighter, 5, 6 pound setups. When you start getting above 7 and 8 pounds, that counterbalance may not be enough. So these are designed for lightweight work. They're not designed for heavy lenses. Why am I putting my 11 pound lens on here? Because I want to show you something. If I was in a pinch, and if I had to take video with this, I absolutely could. In fact, the heavier weight of this lens makes it even smoother than it normally is. I just have to be very careful with it. You can do it, but this is not your everyday, and it's not a situation where you want to do it for a long period of time. If, for example, I was out in the yard and I wanted to take video real quick, and this was available, I would absolutely be comfortable popping this on, going out in the yard, doing my video, taking it off, and being done for the day. Now there's a pretty big difference between this and the next one that I'm going to show you. So this review is really around these two lenses, the BV5 and the BV10, and what their uses are and what their pros and cons are. I like both of these. I like using these better than the one I'm about to show you, even though the one I'm about to show you is heavier. The reason is just because it's faster and easier, and if I was traveling, I could easily just take one of these and throw it in my bag at 1 pound. I'm not worried about adding a lot of weight. And if I was out in the field and traveling and I wanted to switch heads or do some video, I could easily put that on. And like I just showed you, even with my heavy lens, I could use that in a pinch, but it's not something I want to do every day. All right, let me grab one more here. And I'm going to cut the video and grab this. So I real quickly want to set up the BV15 for you because I showed you in that BV10 with this heavy setup that flop. And I'm actually glad it did it because there's an important concept when that thing flops. If you're not careful, you could damage some equipment. When those are locked out, it's not an issue. It's only if you don't lock it out and you aren't manning it. Those are built for, even though the load capacity might be 8 and 11 pounds, they're really built for about 7 pounds and under. With this one, you can easily get away with a 10 or even 15 pound setup. You also have to have some caution with this. So I want to show you the difference. It's much bigger, so it's twice the weight. It supports more weight. It only costs $40 more. So from a value standpoint, there's actually a lot of value in this because you're starting to get, drag control for tilting and panning. And the thing that's missing with this one is a adjustable counterbalance. So we're going to quickly look at that. Because I showed you in the last one, I showed you some floppage, right? You got to be very careful with those setups. With this one, I'm going to take off the lock. So there's no lock on here now. And I'm using the drag control to keep it in place. So you can see I can move it, but this is actually drag control. It will, because that counterbalance may not be quite strong enough to keep it in place, there might be some of that. So I'm going to adjust it just a hair. And I'm going to take this drag control down. And you can see when it's in this position, it's not a problem at all. If it starts to tilt, and this is where the fear with any fluid head comes in, or any system that's top heavy, is when it starts, there it goes. When the center of gravity starts to pull it down, is it going to be a problem? With this particular head around 10 pounds, it's really not that big a deal. So it will want to move. So you can see it doing it again. It will want to creep down. That is not ideal. So you will be using, if you're using a heavier setup, you're going to lock this out. Now I'm going to cover all that. I just wanted to show you the difference since I mentioned this in the intro and showed you the price point. The real difference is this one can handle that 8 to 12 pound range much more comfortably. And the BV5 and the BV10, those are going to be your lightweight setups. If you're doing macro, if you like to do video for anything smaller, if you're using, say, a 70 to 200 millimeter lens and you're photographing sports, really great application for that, by the way. You may be doing video of your kids, really great application for that. So while I'm a wildlife photographer and I'm always thinking in terms of wildlife and sometimes thinking in terms of long lenses, these fluid heads are very, very smooth. Just be very conscious about the weight. Do I have a recommendation one over the other? Not really. They honestly, if I was blindfolded, I probably wouldn't know which one I was using. One is a little bit bigger, wider diameter, a little bit heavier and a little bit more expensive. There wasn't a significant difference in counterbalance. So if you're budget conscious, the BV5 would probably suit you just as good as the BV10. However, with that said, you just want to make sure that you are monitoring that lens when it starts to give above that like 5, 6, 7 pound threshold. And the weight limit on that is rated for 8, 9 pounds. So just be real careful when you get into those heavier setups. Not one that you want to just walk away from. But I love it for macro. That's personally what I use it for. If you ever see an insect video, if you follow me on social media, you may see something over there. Now, if there's something I missed in the video, or if you're curious about something with one of these tripod heads, let me know. Keep in mind I have some more videos coming up, so stay tuned for that. Make sure you're subscribed to the channel. Hit the bell for notifications that let you know when I have a new video out. The like button will push this content out to like-minded individuals, and there may be some people searching for fluid heads or lightweight fluid heads that would be interested in seeing this video, so make sure you hit that like button. And that's what I've got for you today. Look forward to doing some more videos for you soon, and as always, I hope we can continue to find inspiration in wildlife together.